An invisible workforce of almost 5 million people, working around the clock, sometimes 7 days a week. They're England's unpaid carers, a workforce that's been forgotten. And this workforce needs a break. Under the law, families looking after their loved ones are entitled to time off, to respite, funded by their local authority. But up and down the country, respite centres are closing down and respite care is being withdrawn, leaving families feeling desperate, sometimes even suicidal, and all too often feeling at breaking point.
Hey.
Will always be someone that needs to assist Yusuf, that will need to help Yusuf, that will need to do those things that we all take for granted. You put your face on in the morning, you go out and you just deal with it, and then you come home and then you crumble. Literally.
Mama, to kiwi.
Respite care has been a godsend for the Raja family. But in March, Muniba worries that small break will be taken away. Tell me about when the pressure builds up.
I feel like crying, and I do cry. It sometimes causes huge arguments between myself and my husband, because it's like, well, you should have done this, why is he not doing this? And that can be frustrating because you're so frustrated with Yusuf, you can't take the frustration out of Yusuf, you end up taking the frustration out on each other. And that can be a huge detrimental effect in a marriage as well. You're actually at literal breakdown physically as well as mentally. So without that respite, not being able to charge your batteries, not being able to have that time out in a sense, and for Yusuf to have that time out from us as well. And let me make that very clear, because it's so important for him to have that time away, that independence as well. It makes such a difference to his life.
He's happier when he comes home.
He is so much more happier when he comes home.
You're
and we're
happier.
happier. And it's just literally 3 nights.
Mostly, yeah.
This is Jubilee Lodge, run by the charity Revitalise.
That was a great one, what you said.
Typically, to be honest, most carers are just catching up on sleep, getting some laundry done and just having a little bit of time to themselves. Or what we see is that people come together, and because we're able to take the responsibility for the care, the carer and the disabled person, who are 95% of the time family, can just enjoy each other for each other. For many carers, they never get that opportunity.
Local authority funding has been squeezed for the last 14 years, made even worse by runaway inflation, which has meant that goods and pay increases have gobbled up budgets meant to provide schooling, bin collection, sports centres and social care. In fact, social care now accounts for 2/3 of the entire funding package for local authorities. But while demand is rising to record levels for adult social care, provision is falling, with almost 500,000 people simply stuck waiting to be assessed. It's 4.7 million unpaid carers covering the gaps in England alone. But the latest figures from the Department of Health show only 1 out of 129 of these people received respite support. That's a 37% drop from 2015, a staggering reduction.
I think they're just abandoned. You know, I think they're just, it's just expected that they'll just go on and on and on, providing care without very much support at all.
What happens to adult social care if respite disappears?
A carer, a family carer, has no legal obligation to care for a loved one. They do it because of love. If you have millions of carers tomorrow turn around and say, I am no longer willing or able to provide care because I am burnt out, the cost to the state would be absolutely, and the taxpayer would be enormous, enormous.
The pressures on local government funding prompted a wave of MPs to warn the government that 1 out of 5 councils were on the brink of bankruptcy. It produced a £600 million emergency payment last week, but most local authorities say that won't touch the sides. How is it happening?
I think we are at a crisis point.
If you look at the law, it says you're entitled to respite, and local authorities simply say, we don't have any money left.
Yep. Well, first of all, let me agree with you. I think absolutely it must be a really challenging, difficult time, really weary job of looking after somebody. Even though you love them, there is a lot of effort needed. I understand that. I think Respite is absolutely right. We need to provide that. I think it comes down to those local councils making decisions. Maybe the 500 million that was just been announced will help them to look at some of those services. And really, it's a very short-term measure not to make sure they don't get respite.
Mrs. Raja is still waiting for the funding to be cleared for Yusuf to go to Jubilee Lodge. She says the council has failed to engage with the family, adding to her stress. Redbridge told us they were working with the Raja family to provide the best possible care and pointed to central government budget cuts of 55% since 2010, they say have put pressure on their ability to meet the costs of providing care to the most vulnerable people in our communities. The government told us it's boosted funding because it recognises the importance of respite and said it owed a debt of gratitude to the millions of unpaid carers in the country. But without a multi-year financial settlement and a national plan, the future of social care remains unclear.